The time having arrived, I hereby call on January 27th, 2025, a meeting of the Town of Hanson Planning Board to order at 6:30 PM. I'd also like to announce for all those in attendance that this meeting is being recorded for distribution of Whitman Hanson Community Access. Playback times and other related information on this recording can be found at whca.tv. Some clerical information, and we do have a sign-in sheet for those that are in attendance here tonight in the audience, so please make sure when you get a chance to sign in. Also, we respectfully request that everybody silent their cell phones unless you have, certainly have an emergency that you need to be able to communicate with somebody. We are certainly respectful of that. With that call to order tonight, we have our full planning board as well as our planning office, the town administrator and the town planner, as well as the town planner administrative assistant is in attendance. We also have our town administrator here tonight, so it's very nice to see administrator. Welcome. The first item of business on our agenda is approval of the January 13th, 2025 open session public meeting minutes. We need some board action in regards to the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion's been made by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr. Beninato. Any discussion in regards to that motion? All those in favor signify, raise your hands. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 5-0, Tony. Thank you. Moving on. Seeing the time having arrived at 6:32, I hereby continue the hearing for the Main Street pedestrian improvements. Verdentist to provide project update and discuss revised design plans. The project consists of replacing and/or constructing approximately 4,000 linear feet of sidewalk along Main Street from High Street to Elm Street. And this is the posting, right, Tony?
Yes.
For the record?
No, sir, that
That's
posting
the
is,
second. That's the next. Thank you.
that's for the third item on it.
Thank you. We have here tonight at our table, representative from Verdentist. So, sir, please take it away.
Good evening. Eric Donardo, Senior Project Manager, also a professional engineer from Verdentist. So this is more of a status update related to the revised plans. This is a continuation from the November meeting. So following the November meeting, we received comments from the public regarding the state right-of-way line related to the actual Main Street to determine exactly where the state is able to provide the sidewalks. Furthermore, so that is denoted on the plan with the R-W line on the north and south side. Those were taken from the existing conditions for the station landing dated August 14th, 2020. So in addition, Verdentist has noted that the proposed pedestrian improvements are approaching the right-of-way line for citizen ownership for 115 Main Street, 0 Main Street, 1071 Main Street, and 1011-1057 Main Street. So just to kind of further reiterate that, we did speak with the town planner on Friday. Those kind of consist of more of the commercial space, essentially shown on here at around station 21 plus 00 to about station 27 or so, right about there. So we did discuss with the town planner on potential options related to that, whether that's discussing the town with the owners to determine whether or not there's any access agreements or anything that can be put in place. But that's something that we'll work through as we kind of progress through the design. In addition, as we noted during the comments related from public involvement, there are concerns related to potential encroachment to existing residences further due west. So what we tried to do was essentially we took the list of every member that was in attendance during the last planning board meeting, and we actually created additional cross sections for each one of those property owners. That's shown. So these plans are going to change. We're currently in the process of changing it. It's specific to this sheet. The majority of the people that had concerns related to the right-of-way line. So as you'll see on these cross sections, the right-of-way line actually are all not imposing on the property ownership based on the 50-foot right-of-way. So in addition, following our meeting with the town planner on Friday of last week, we also did a brief site walk to essentially, one of the concerns was where is existing sidewalk? So essentially what we noted that's shown on the plan is a current replacement from station 17 plus 50 to 25 plus 00 on the north side. So we'll be discussing with the town planner on if we would like to replace it. The asphalt sidewalk is currently in good condition. It also does have granite curbing, which is obviously the more expensive between granite and concrete. Really what we'll be developing next is a more revised sheet, call it a 90% design plan, which will show the key plan. So it'll basically show an overall for the site plan. It'll depict where each one of the sheets corresponds to. We'll also have a larger scale. So this is a 1 in 50 scale. We're going to blow that up to a 1 in 20 scale, so it's easier to see. In addition, we're going to create an additional sheet that shows all cross sections. One of the things that we're noting as well is that in order for us to be ADA compliant, our goal is 5 feet wide. We do have the flexibility to go down to 36 inches. So what we will be doing is looking for, further public involvement to see if there's any need to reduce down to 36 inches in certain areas, just to maintain that we're making sure we keep the public involved and, anything they might have in that general area within reason. So as I mentioned, these are revised set just so that we had something to kind of provide, but this is more of a status update. I have already talked with Tony that we will be preparing a revised set for the next meeting, and that'll be more clear, and we'll be sure to kind of walk through sheet by sheet on some of the revisions that are further made.
Wonderful, thank you, Eric.
Absolutely.
Any questions from the board? Town planner?
As Eric said, I met with Eric and Roy last Friday. They showed me these plans and had explained to me what they just explained to the board. So as the plans get more detailed and closer to the final design, I think they've addressed most of the issues that were brought up. There is some, as he says, in some areas, there's some encroachment, but it's in front of existing businesses. It's not single-family residences or multi-family residences. So there may be some leeway there to potentially, let's say, get easements from those businesses because it is in front of their business. It might help. It's sort of an improvement for them.
Sure. For
accessibility. And then the discussion of the 5 foot wide versus it's 3 feet wide, depending on site conditions or constraints. So he said that they would expect our tentative meeting is February 10th. And they would expect that they would have the design completed for that meeting to present.
Wonderful. As this is a public hearing, we'd like to have the audience members, if there's anybody that has any questions, would like to have a comment, concern, anything like, please just state your name for the record, so we have that in, and hello.
Charlotte Fastek,
Yes, hi, Charlotte.
1222 Main Street.
1222.
Are they still talking about double sidewalks?
Go ahead.
Yes.
On both, one on each side.
So there are sidewalks on each side, only in certain areas that are, we can basically work with what's there. One of the big things that we noticed, especially closer to Elm Street, is that a lot of the entrances to different residences are fully open and it's almost used as the parking area. So we have omitted those as part of the sidewalks. But we're also not proposing specifically at Station 0, Tony, if you don't mind. There is flexibility for us to put a sidewalk closer to Elm Street, but that sidewalk would be leading to nowhere. So we've decided that that's not really feasible because you essentially aren't connecting anywhere.
Well, most of the sidewalks that originally are there still are on the north side. I just wondered why they're talking about sidewalk on the south side at all.
So the sidewalk on the north side is about 750 feet. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to keep the sidewalks on the north side and connect them so that there's access on both sides.
Right.
In addition, I know I spoke about this last time, but we are implementing as well the ADA detector pads at each location, just to remain compliant.
Yes. Hello.
Sharon Laporte, 1202 Main Street.
Hi, Ms. Laporte. Nice to meet you.
I'm curious how wide these sidewalks are going to be.
Anywhere between 5 feet,
Uh-huh.
and can have a reduction down to 36 feet if it's necessary.
36
Okay.
inches.
I'm sorry, 36 inches. Thank you. You guys all jumped up at the same time. I'll take you all on. So 5 feet down to 36 inches.
Yeah. Feeling for the folks that are on the south side of the street, most of them are gonna lose any front yard they ever had. I'm just kind of wondering how you can handle that.
To handle the,
Lack of front yard space.
sure.
Directly across from me.
Yeah,
If they have 10 feet left, I'd be surprised.
Eric?
Yes, absolutely. So as mentioned, we are showing that right-of-way line. So if you'll notice, that right-of-way line is where this.
Do you want to show, or do you mind showing right on the map?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be nice, thank you.
I'll face this direction.
Can you explain
Yes, of course.
what a right-of-way line is?
So the right-of-way line is essentially an offset from the center line of the roadway.
Yes,
So
I understand that.
So that's a 50-foot distance from this top line to this bottom line.
Yes,
So essentially, the town has ownership up to this line, and it corresponds to the property line as well. So this dash line is each property line that we surveyed in. So essentially, the town has, I don't want to say ownership, but they essentially can do work within this section. So similar to, yeah, so you can put sidewalks or, in addition, there's series of different storm water system and catch basins that might be located in this section as well. So the idea is that where we're proposing is trying to limit any potential issues with the driveway access and the parking as well, while also maintaining access for both the south and north side.
what is the scale of the map, this particular map?
So this scale right now is 1 in 50.
Okay.
We're going to be revising it to 1 in 20 so that it really,
You
it's
can get the
very,
details better.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And then there's the problem of the south side of the street, where the land rises up quite sharply. What does the town intend to do about that?
So we're also showing that on each cross section. So the software that we use is actually able to provide the grade change between the sidewalk elevation, which remains constant, and then pick up or pick down, whichever direction it has to go, in order to match the existing grade.
Well, they'll build up the lawn behind it then.
It will, it's mapped out to basically match what's existing over there. There's also potential, and this is something we can talk about down the line, but they do have lot curves, which can kind of retain some of that
Yes,
landscaping
I've
as
seen some
well.
of that in Pembroke, I was
Yeah.
just curious.
Yep.
What they were going
Just a
to
moment,
do
there's somebody
with
behind you. I'll get you next.
it.
Miss in the back.
Yes, Denise Ledbetter, 1263 Main Street.
Miss Ledbetter.
I'm very close to the street. Is that part of the emission?
How things?
Did you say 1263?
Mhm.
This is 1319.
Right here, this one,
Yeah.
right there.
Yep, so right now, we're only proposing to do it in that center area between each side of your
Well,
driveway.
that's where my circular is. So that's going to encroach very close to my driveway. And snow removal and everything else is going to end up in my driveway with that. That's
Understood?
my concern.
Okay. That's noted. I mean, again, this is, what we're trying to do is make it as, public engaging as possible. So just like how I mentioned before, we're not proposing any sidewalks here because they lead to nowhere. Now, this is something that we can talk to the town about, but if it's more conducive to essentially start the sidewalk here, then that's something that we can discuss.
There's another option, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, John Blair.
Is another option to possibly reduce that to a 36-inch sidewalk in that spot? So at
Absolutely.
least you gain 2 more feet.
Yep, absolutely.
The snow will still end up in my driveway. Is that close?
Snowbird still is a little bit of a highway office. So
No, I
that's-
understand that, but
Yeah.
the closer you are to my driveway, where are you gonna blow the snow when you're cleaning off the sidewalk? It's not gonna go in the street. It's gonna go in my driveway.
Luckily, we don't get snow anymore.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Miss, you had a question before, Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Yes.
if they, God, I can't even think of what it is now, I had to wait for them, you go ahead.
Well, sure.
Mr. Clemens.
Went to you, right. Philip Clemens, 46 Main Street,
Thank you, sir.
way down the other end. But I actually own an undeveloped piece of property in this area. It's not developed because it's swamp, so there's probably not going to be issues there. And I'm a former owner of the 1125 or 1127 Main Street property, so I'm very familiar with it. One of the questions I have is, on the south side, more or less opposite, let's say, 1222 Main Street, the grade is quite steep, it already is. And I'm picturing having to cut into that and create the 5-foot or 30, whatever. And I'm not sure where the funding is coming from for this, but when you do that, picture some sections of Route 58, not far from where Mr. Ellis lives, for example. There's several front yards where there's significantly constructed stone walls with drainage and capstone and everything else on it. Looks like it would be expensive to add that to the price of the sidewalk itself. Not to mention the disruption to homeowners' quote-unquote front yards. Is cost an issue, or is there some terrifically wonderful federal source that we don't worry about cost on this?
Well, at this point,
Go to town planner.
at this point, this is for the design.
Well,
And
the
then-
design eventually leads to someone spending money, so I'm just asking now, ahead of time.
That would be considered in the grant, because that's probably what we would chase to get the funding to build it.
And in closing on that, I find myself wondering how many actual pedestrian destinations there are along the south side. The businesses, until you get right down to almost to the tracks, the businesses are mostly on the north side. You know, whether it's the restaurant at top of the hill or the MBTA or anything else. It's just wondering if there truly is solid reasons for doing both sides. You know, to have a complete street, this and that.
Mhm.
I actually had the privilege of working with the town of East Bridgewater about 10 years ago. They significantly did a lot of work on their sidewalks between the center along 106 down to the YMCA, and it was great. So there's this acting with the Base Red Trail. I mean, there's a lot of good things they did there, but this is a different little village, so to speak, and just wondering if we truly are connecting the dots for need as well as ambition for the project.
Thank you.
My question, shall I ask? What about the sides, the areas that go down directly from the road? Because next to me, I have a section like that. Next to, I think it's Phil's property,
Swamp.
that doesn't have anything.
No.
But there are a lot of downward. What would they do in a situation like that?
Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're still, I mean, you'll notice on, and again, as we kind of develop more of a better scale. So essentially this line on the backside here, this darker line beyond the hatched area, this is the extent required for the regrading associated to meet other grades. So as you'll note, some areas have significant changes that need to be made. So we'll make sure that we factor in any sort of riprap embankment that we would need in order to stabilize it or anything like that. And as we progress, and then that riprap embankment or whatever we need to do that might cause stabilization issues, if that exceeds beyond the right of way, we need to have a discussion with the town.
I still don't see why we need one on each side of the side.
One more question. At the eastern extremity of the proposed work area you showed earlier, it seems to terminate approximately, but not far from the intersection of Phillip Street and Main Street, a little further, or does it go to High Street?
It ends at High Street.
Oh, okay. Could we scroll back to the left towards the west and look at the large amount of frontage where the old Holy Cranberry Company property is, and talk about what the thoughts are there? Because I didn't remember seeing that when you first put it up. There you go. It looks like the sidewalk ceases on the south side there, and there's just the orange right-of-way line it also probably includes part of the brick building, the building probably standing in the road. Just curious about that and whether you have any comments, because it's, right now, there is a very poor excuse for a sidewalk in front of that building. And some of us in this row have experience with tripping and falling on that because there's that. I just didn't know if this was an opportunity to address that particular area, because now that actually gets pretty close to some new residential and other destinations, like coffee place and everything else. And it may be that that's an elephant too big to move out of the room, I don't know.
Yes, that is definitely a good point. The problem is obviously as soon as you start to encroach on the existing roadway, you now have to, go beyond what's just a sidewalk replacement and then a realignment for a road. So as of now, what we've spoken with the town on is essentially just, we can't fit in we can't even fit in a 36-inch wide walkway.
Well,
Yeah, but, what we are proposing is a crosswalk right at the end. And then this area does have the existing sidewalk that carries all the way down. So we are trying to allow for proper access on both sides. On the south side, from where this terminates to where it picks up, we can't put something there, unfortunately.
Denise London, 1263. Where does the sidewalk end on the south side?
That's a great book, by the way.
yeah.
It's a wonderful book. Yeah.
So in terms of going west-east,
Yes.
so it does end essentially right here at this 4050. So it's like 4,000 feet from Elm Street.
And the other end, where does it end there?
I want to say, yeah, basically it starts, like what we just talked about before, where yours is,
So right
it's
there,
basically
right
right
near
there.
mine. You can't end it before that.
Destinations be more direct.
You can, yeah.
It's so narrow there.
Well, I think,
Road is.
yeah, I think that's kind of the thought on the sidewalk improvements, not to speak with the town, but if you do have someone that's walking on there, there's either grass or the road.
Yeah.
So if we're able to adequately, based on right-of-way line, provide walkways for pedestrians, that's gonna help to kind of allow for further foot traffic.
One other question. If the project were to go forward based on this very early design, or mid-case course design, will the width of the paved actual road surface for vehicles be the same as it is now, or wider, or narrow, or what would be the math for that rather busy section where people tend to not notice the speed limit signs?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's remaining the same. So we're taking the edge of the asphalt line and basically picking it up from there. So if you can imagine, the fog line is still, within that roadway. So that is going to remain.
So this, because the scope of this is just sidewalks, I'm assuming there's no discussion or visioning of any other traffic calming devices that might address speed or anything else, right? This is just the sidewalk discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
The planning board took off the spike strips in the street. We didn't see that. It is dangerous down there.
Yeah, pop-up.
That's right. Yeah, pop-up ones. Yes.
Chair on the board. The existing sidewalks, are those to remain the way they are?
It's a great question. All right.
Yes, they are. We have done multiple sidewalks up and down Main Street. The existing sidewalks are in good condition. They're also adequately sized already.
Except for the one in front of the Ocean Spray Building.
Well, that's,
That we can't really
I mean, it's
change.
against the building, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, it might be in an option for the town to potentially remove it to stop.
I'll make a
foot
better one
traffic.
across the street, and never mind that one.
Forget the one on
maybe
the
have
south
a,
side.
block it off.
Yeah.
So this is actually a great back and forth, appreciate all the input. It's not the end all be all. This is just a continuation of our public hearing. We will absolutely be speaking about this again. Our dentist is going to come back with the 1 in 20 scale, so it's going to even have further detail. So that if there's any other comments or concerns that anybody has, certainly get them right into the town planner's office. And you can we'll add all of that into any discussions that we have with Verdantis.
And when is that meeting due?
That TBD to be determined, we're not exactly sure yet. Probably sometime February.
February 10th would be the next meeting, and
The
that's what,
finalized plan is to be,
So-
by February 10th.
so February 10th.
I just
And
can't
we-
answer that because there's a question I need to ask the gentleman to my left and right.
And we'll reach out, if I may, Mr. Chair, we'll reach out to you as we have. I think we spoke to some of you folks via phone or email.
Yes.
Any comments from the town administrator? Right. Anything further, ladies and gentlemen? Nothing further? Appreciate you being here. Thank you for your input. It's valuable. It's extremely valuable. So gentlemen, we need to have some action in regards to a continuation of the Main Street pedestrian improvements tentatively to February 10th. Motion's been made by Mr. Benonato. Second. There's a second by Mr. Cohen. We are going to continue this hearing until February 10th. All those in favor signify by, is there any discussion in regards to that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We will continue to February 10th, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Nice to see everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
No invoices this evening?
Yes, we do have one.
Chair would entertain a motion to take the meeting out of order.
So moved.
Made by Mr. Cohen, second by Mr. Benonato. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Tell them we'll take the meeting out of order so we can do some clerical between now and the 7 PM next meeting. Gentlemen, I have before me a voucher, $61.99. This is in regards to planning office supplies from WB Mason. Any questions, comments, or concerns before I sign? $61.99.
Just one?
Just one. Thank you very much.
Chair feels like a lazy boy. This one didn't go back as far. I just want to put my feet up on the table. Yeah.
Time having arrived at 7 PM, I hereby continue the hearing to receive an update of the Hanson Housing Production Plan. Consultant Karen Sunneborg, did I say it right this time?
Close enough.
Close enough? To update us presented revisions to the draft housing production plan. Bless you.
Bless you.
Based community and board, based on community input and board input regarding future housing needs. So nice to see you again, Karen. Hope you had a good holiday. You're very welcome. Please take it away.
Sure. So the last meeting, I went through kind of the key takeaways from the housing production plan, and we had a productive discussion in my mind, and you raised a number of comments, which I tried to capture in the edits of the plan that I highlighted in red font for your easy reference. So, I mean, the main changes relate to kind of the count on the SHI, adding that the town has submitted documentation to the state for 10 units at Cushing Trails. And the state acknowledged that they were in receipt of that documentation, when we're in the process of reviewing that. And also additional 14 units at Liberty Woods will bring the town's affordable housing threshold to 5.4%. So we've included that update in a couple of areas of the plan.
We've made some gains.
Yeah, yeah,
Can I
exactly.
ask a quick question on that?
Yeah.
I thought those were already added in at the approval stage, not at the build stage.
The state has to get the necessary documentation before they can actually count them.
Okay, so
on
they
the
weren't
SHI.
counted.
Yeah, they should
Yeah.
be, yeah, I mean, so that's
Gotcha.
If I,
basically what.
if I may, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair,
Yeah,
just-
well,
I believe if it's over a year before they pull the building permit, then it's the building permit. So
Yeah.
once it gets approved, it gets counted, but if they don't pull a building permit, if the project doesn't kick off in over a year, because it's been over 12 months,
Yes.
then it's the building permit that counts
That makes
as the,
sense.
That's
Okay.
right.
the units has to count.
That's right.
it was so empty for some.
Thank you.
And there was, you know, quite a bit of discussion on infrastructure challenges in this community. So added some additional language about that in the draft. Also some clarification on Dunham Farms. It's mentioned 11 units are currently counted on the SHI. And there was a question based on the permitting, there were 2 additional units that were to be added. One kind of went by the wayside, and my understanding is the one still in the process, and it may also go by the wayside, but hopefully it will be sold. So we added that little clarification
Great.
in the draft. And there's a section that talks about community engagement and meetings, so I kind of added dates on the meetings that we've had. State loves to see, you know, community engagement activities. And then the whole issue of the MBTA community guidelines, added, you know, update based on the court decision, also mentioning that the town has been pretty successful in applying and receiving a number of state grants, and more coming down the road. But given the timing now between the state's ability to actually get regulations approved, there's time to kind of revisit your proposed zoning that you had before and make whatever changes that you think make sense. And then updated also to include the progress that has been made on the potential 40Y district, starter home district, that the town is actually engaged, that received the grant, engaged a consultant who's working on some exploratory feasibility for the town. So added that to the plan. Those are the major changes. And
So,
Yes, Mr. Benoit.
so is this still recommending that the town still comply?
yes,
Any other questions from the board? Yes, town administrator.
If I may,
Please.
we actually just received a notification today from the state regarding the MBTA communities, that town Hanson, and basically they said town Hanson, you have until February 13th to provide a new action plan, and the town does have, now has until July 13th to become compliant with the law. So literally, it just came in probably about 4:30. Did I sent you a copy of that letter?
Yeah, I'm actually we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, so it has outlined a number of grants that the town will not be eligible for. And whereas, as the law is basically saying, we have until the 13th of February to submit an action plan until the 13th of July to comply with the law.
14th.
The action plan would include what?
I don't know.
Not
Dr.
zoning
Frazee may be able
language,
to,
but like a time frame for
Yeah.
compliance, basically?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll actually be touching on, that's on
Yeah.
our agenda.
Okay, great. Anybody have any other questions for Karen?
We should mention that we are scheduled to go before the select board on February 25th now.
Yes.
It's been scheduled, that we need both the planning board and select board's approval in order to submit the plan to the state.
On the 25th.
Yeah.
So that allows us to meet, discuss again on the
10th,
10th, but not,
and then the 24th. So it's cutting it real close on the 24th.
yeah, right. When's the 25th was the select board, so we have 2 meetings. Okay, great.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
so
top planner.
we also received a letter this last week from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, HLC for short, to go and prepare our biannual SHI. So I'll be working on that to get them an updated subsidized housing inventory.
Okay.
It's a requirement every 2 years.
Any other further comments, questions from anybody in the audience? Chair would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing until February 10th. Motion was made by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr. Ellis. Any discussion in regards to that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 5-0. Thank you very much, Karen. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a few minutes, gentlemen, before we have our next public hearing at 7:15. We did motion, and it was voted on to take the agenda out of order if necessary. 7:08.
Being a public hearing, Mr. Chair, it'll have to kick off at 7:15 because that's where we're supposed to.
Yeah, just trying to see if there's anything else on the agenda we could put right in that timeframe.
If you'd like, Mr. Chair, I can provide you an update on the Meadowbrook subdivision.
Please do, top planner.
So the majority of the utilities, as far as I know, have been installed. A majority of the drainage has been installed. The water line connecting the subdivision to the existing water line of County Road has been completed. They've reinstalled an apron, paved apron from County Road to about station 100-ish.
Okay.
It was interesting, I had received a phone call from the site contractor, and he wanted to pave. And his question was, when would you like the compaction testing results? Before we pave or after we pave? Of course, I told him, before you pave. So he was going to work on that, but then the weather changed and it got pretty wet out there. So then they realized that, okay, it's a time crunch, we're not gonna be able to pave. So they sort of shut down, we'll say, for the winter, and they'll reopen in the spring. I did receive a second phone call, but this time from the developer, and the question posed to me was, what do I need to do to get lot releases? And I said, well, you have to follow the subdivision control law, and it tells you what you need to do. I said, I sent you a copy, you need a preliminary as-built, you need certifications, and he threw out the question of, would the board consider waiving that requirement and release the lots? And I told him, you could ask, but my gut feeling would be no. And I would recommend to the board, no.
Right.
It just would not make sense for you to release lots on a road that's dirt and have construction vehicles destroying the road, and it just never unheard of. So I said, but you can very well ask. I'm not preventing you from asking. And he said, no, I think your gut instinct is probably right. So at this point, they're sort of on hold until the spring, when they'll get us those, compaction tests, and
Are
then
they complying with turning in their SWIP reports?
they have been
Nice.
very consistent.
Very good.
After every storm event,
Yeah.
I get one.
Good.
Mr. Ellis has been very good with those. I have a stack of them in a folder and online, and I also forward those to the Conservation Commission.
Joe Cabana should be elated.
Yeah, you would be, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Any
been,
questions from the board for town planner about the update for Meadowbrook subdivision, County Road? Great.
I spaced these out with a little more time because I thought there'd be more conversation.
Got a question.
Mr. Ellis?
Can we go back to, I got a question, and you don't need to, because the hearing's been on the road down on Main Street, the sidewalks. When they go in front of that building, if they eliminate the sidewalk that's there now in front of Ocean Spray, should somebody put something up so that the cars, if it's just asphalt to it, would keep them from driving into the building? Is there some sort of, anything that might have been discussed?
No, and I'm not sure that the town would actually go in and take the sidewalk out, just because of the cost. What's the benefit of ripping the sidewalk out? I mean, I think that property is still for sale. I don't think it's, so,
Only, asking is because they talked about putting a sidewalk at that point to the edge of the building across the street so that they had more space to walk down the sidewalk and on the other side of the street, and then, but she said something about taking it out, or,
well, the reality becomes, even if you rip the sidewalk out and you put grass, it doesn't mean that someone's not gonna walk in front of the building or
No.
the grass, So it just means that the sidewalk, obviously, that's there is non-compliant with any kind of ADA standard. The town could remove a section, the town, yeah, the town could remove a section, the town could put something to stop people from continuing, but they just walk around it.
right,
You're not gonna, people are gonna go where they're gonna go, no matter how many, unless you fence it completely, which you wouldn't do, which I mean, you could do, but it'd look real ugly.
my concern was more about if you eliminated it, or somebody eliminated it, there's no protection against, like there's a curb there before you run into the building.
Well, the curb would stay.
Oh, okay.
And the curb would stay. In a situation like that, the curb, the granite curb that would stay there, and all you would do is remove the asphalt sidewalk portion and then loam and seed it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you'd get much grass growth because of the fact that you get a lot of shadow there, so.
No.
the public notice, the hearing notice is there for you.
Great, thank you. The time have arrived of 7:15 PM. I hereby open the hearing for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to remove sections 6B, 6B, 6G, and 6.1 in their entirety and replace with new language conforming to 760 CMR, section 71.01 through 71.04. Excuse me, the new bylaw will provide for regulation to allow for attached and detached accessory dwelling units as of right and meet Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 3. For the record, this hearing has been posted in the Women Hanson Express on January 9th and January 16th of 2025. Town Planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as the board is aware, we currently have a accessory dwelling unit bylaw. And okay, give me 1 second.
Sure.
Seem to be having a technical difficulty here. Really?
Hang on, Paul. Hang on.
So we currently have a ADU bylaw, which requires a special permit for someone to get an attached or detached accessory dwelling unit, or what we consider the attached is in essence what we call our in-law, and the detached is obviously a separate structure. And I'm trying to open things up, but I'm having a technical difficulty here with my laptop. So what's happening now is there's state legislature that passed the Affordable Housing Act is what it was called. And under that, what the state has done in Section 3 of the Zoning Act is made it so that accessory dwelling units will now be allowed as of right. And that towns can impose regulations but cannot impose unreasonable regulations, such as we currently require a special permit. No longer will that applicant require a special permit or go before ZBA for that special permit. We require a owner occupancy. That is no longer allowed. So because of that, our bylaw, as of February 2nd when it kicks in, our bylaw in essence would become null and void. So to have some regulation in place until town meeting adopts the new language, I've proposed, well, when I say I, working with town council, I've come up with the language that amends the bylaw so that it conforms with the requirements of the law, but yet still gives some control to some degree for Hanson, and also allows anyone that files an application after the 2nd of February some guidance and guidelines as to what they need to do. So I had submitted to you some language. Regarding the bylaw and what was written up by the town council. Okay. Mr. Chair, if we could take a 5-minute recess so I could
Absolutely.
reset this.
Entertain a motion for a 5-minute recess for technical difficulties.
So moved.
Motion's been made. It's 7:25, we're back in session. Please continue, Town Planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, with the assistance of town council, we created an amended bylaw. Part of the problem with the Commonwealth is the fact that they have regulations and they were draft. Over the weekend, they released the final version of those draft regulations. Not much has changed, some wording here and there. But based on that language, I felt that it might, I went back into the bylaw that we had written up and I had made some revisions. And so the revisions I made are in red, and basically under definitions, accessory dwelling unit, I didn't change the definition, it's just the location of the wording. But I added a definition for building code, gross floor area, modular dwelling unit, which I believe is one of the questions you had brought up previously,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Principal dwelling, protected use ADU, short-term rental, single-family residential dwelling, single-family residential zoning district, site plan review, and special permit. So those definitions. Under our requirements for accessory dwelling unit, so that the language is consistent, I changed from structure of a single family to principal dwelling, because they use that and they have a definition for it. Same thing with I added single-family residential zoning district versus residential lots, just to be for consistency. When we get to number 8, we talk about the ADUs conforming to the building code, but I also added the fire code. And I talk about utility connections. One of the questions that had come up with the existing one we have on Liberty Street, which was one of the first ones, was what do we do with, say, like the water line and the electrical? Is it a separate service? Is it one that comes off the main house? So we deferred that, the building department deferred that to the water department and the utility company. One of the things under the final regulations talks about that the town cannot require separate utilities, but a utility provider can. So I wanted to touch base, it's just to have something that says, the utility connections will conform to the utility provider regulations and all state code requirements.
Because the state has, that the utilities are supposed to come from the existing, correct?
Well,
Or the principal.
so the town can't, so the way the language reads is the town can't say, you have to have 2 water lines, 2 water services, one for the main house or one for the principal unit or dwelling, and one for the ADU. But, so let's say electrical. If the power company says, no, we want you can't come off the main house to the ADU, you have to do a separate service.
Okay.
Then they're allowed to say that. But for some reason, the town's not allowed to say that.
Okay.
These regulations have pretty much like, if you will, gutted what the town can do as far as an ADU, So,
Just being a wise guy here, can someone take a hose, stick it into the ADU and say, hey, now we got water?
I don't think so, because you still have to go to the water department and have some kind of connection. I think what'll happen with most of these is you'll probably tie off the main service, go to the ADU and put a meter on it, because obviously that is going to be metered separately. Probably something very similar with the electrical. You'll maybe tie off the main house but have its own meter.
Mr. Ellis.
Yeah, some of the laws that are out there basically it's an apartment that's attached to the facility. And the way I think John knows, because he does electrical work, that you can have that, but you gotta have separate meters for it. Where the water goes, you have to furnish water, and you can't charge them for it. So you would come off the main house, I think, if that's the state laws.
Like you can't have 2 water meters on one property?
No, the water department wouldn't want to put a special line in for it. They would come off the house. Because if it falls underneath the state laws, you have to supply water.
Right. I mean, I think that in practice, it pretty much that's how it would work out anyway, because it just makes more sense versus running a separate water line and a separate
No.
power line to a house,
Right.
But the state has been sure to put that language in there, you know. Then I added some language regarding seasonal rentals and, i.e. Airbnb, something similar. Then the modular dwelling units, which is something similar to believe what you were asking about, Mr. Chair, you know, that if they're used as an ADU, they have to meet all the building code requirements. These regulations do have some language in there regarding that. And they also talk about, another thing that's important is, let's say, the addresses. You know, is it, for instance, if the house is 101, is the ADU 101A or 101R? The building inspector had a conversation with, I believe, the postal inspector, and they decided that it'd be like A would be the designation. And then lastly, there was just some double language here. Board of Appeals was used twice just to kind of clear it up. So what I would like to do is send this off to town council, have him review it, and see if any of this language is, if all the language is good, any kind of edits, is there anything that should not be in there? Because, you know, so that it doesn't get thrown out by the AG's office. The state is still working on providing a model bylaw, so where Mr. Talaman actually had sent a advisory, a note, if you will, regarding that these final CMRs had come out, and that existing communities that had passed a amended bylaw would probably have to maybe revisit and some language changes, but those that had not, you know, they were more than willing to review, and that's what they do. So, so that's what those are the changes I made, and these were made today based on the fact that these final regulations had just come in.
So can I just ask you a quick question? Have you reached out to the National Grid? Because they're actually controlled by a state agency, right? And they have what's called a white book that explains to electrical contractors what they can do, what they can't do, as it relates to the utility. And everything you've said so far about the ADUs doesn't comply with that. So maybe some clarification on that, on this would help.
Okay. Yeah,
I can help with that if you want.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you, John. Mr. Ellis?
Tony,
Yes, sir.
you got it as a minimum of 40,000 square feet. Is that necessary? I think
That is for ADUs, second ADUs. So if you want one ADU, you're allowed as of right. If you want a second one, it's a special permit. And then we can have some regulations on that.
Is it possible to fit it on a 30,000 square foot lot? Or 35,000 square feet?
One or two.
Well, for two.
Well,
What makes the difference?
I think the setbacks, the location of the house, where's the septic systems, where's the utilities. So I think there's,
But that's the way you have it now, as part of the requirement, no matter what. They gotta meet the setbacks. But if they can meet those setbacks under a 30,000 square foot lot, or a 35, or a 38, or 39, they just fall underneath it. Why don't we just say 30,000, and if they can fit it in, fine. If they can't, then they can't do it. Under the setbacks, it's like a regular 30,000 square foot lot for setbacks and stuff.
for the second one? But are you talking the second one? Because that's what that refers to. The 40,000 square feet is for if you want to do a second ADU.
Right, so it'd be 3 units to speak of then.
Yes.
2 ADUs and 1 not stationary, but primary. I just think if they can fit it in, I don't know if they try.
I use the 40,000 because our residents, AA is 40,000 square foot.
We
Yeah.
got tons of 30,000 square foot lots, but it's not a heck of a lot of 40,000.
Well, let's put it this way,
Upland area.
that's up to the board. I used 40,000. If you want to change it to 30,000 and you want to vote to change it to 30,000, I can do that.
I don't know, I'm just, theoretically, the town, we've got a lot of 30,000 square foot lots, and less than that, some of them.
My concern is that the less than 30,000 starts to become, it starts to become tight. I mean, even on 30,000, it's tight. I think it's tight to try and get 900 square foot,
But they could put two,
detached.
they could put 2 units in there less than that square footage
They could.
to make it work. Say they only want a 1-bedroom of 500 square feet or 600 square feet.
Well, again, that's at the pleasure of the board. I mean, it's up to you.
Is there a,
If you want to do this to make it affordable for a lot of people, the way I look at it anyway.
is there any,
You still meet the requirements, but you got those requirements of setbacks and all of that, and driveway areas and parking areas and stuff like that to make it work. If it doesn't make it work on 38,000 square feet on a lot, or they can get it on there. Or not, I don't know, I'm just looking at it.
is there anything right now that says square footage of the first ADU is affecting on the second ADU? Yeah, Mr. Coe.
Is there any state regulation on the secondary ADU? Just that.
Just that it's a
So-
special permit.
Oh,
And the other question I got too is, shouldn't this be coming through the planning board? Why is it being shifted to the ZBA?
All the zoning board is gonna do is review any type of, site plan. They can't deny the project, it's just reviewing the site plan and seeing if they conform to the regulations.
yeah, but still with the review of that, why the ZBA, not the planning board?
Only because the ZBA is technically your site plan review authority.
Well, it's the same thing with the adequate access. We have the adequate access.
Right.
And it goes to the building department.
Mhm.
And if it works with approval here, and then it goes to the building department, and it passes through him, then it goes through.
Yeah, but this goes back to what we've been talking about since I've been on this board. The special permitting should be going through the planning board, not through the ZBA.
Right.
That's another argument for another day. I mean, here we are looking at this. But, the special permitting should be going through the planning board like it does in almost every other community in the South Shore.
Right. I mean, we understand it, we know it better than evidently the people that have been hired for the past, ZBAs have had a little bit of issues.
Yeah, but right now, your site plan review board is the zoning board.
And it's a bylaw change.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can fix that.
That's who's reviewing the site plans. You know what I mean? I mean, it's part of the building permit application. The planning board's supposed to get a copy of the site, of the plot plan.
They're also supposed to put in writing the reasons for their decisions, which they do not do either. Just saying.
Well, they give you an approval letter so,
I don't know, it just makes more sense, that's up to me.
Mr. Bernard?
My personal opinion, I think it would be very difficult to put 2 additional ADUs on anything smaller than a 40,000 square foot lot.
Say goodbye to your rural character.
Yeah, unless you're gonna stack them up.
Yeah, there you go.
Might as well just get an Amazon pop-up house, just throw it in your backyard.
You might be wrong.
And certainly this is breathable. This
Yeah.
is not set in stone. If it needed to be changed again at another town meeting, we could certainly
Yes.
try it before you buy it kind of thing.
yes,
Certainly.
yes, like any bylaw, it can be amended, at any time.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, only at town meetings, right?
Right, but you can amend it, if you found that, I mean, the 40,000 again is just for if you're going to have more than one, the second. Not the first one, just the second one. The first one, there's no limit,
Mr. Coe?
With the as of right ADU, is there any regulation regarding someone coming in with building plans for the main structure and the ADU at the same time? Do you foresee that
So,
happening?
as in,
Yeah.
I buy a lot, a blank lot,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanna build a home
Or
and
a
an
tear-
ADU all at the same time.
Yeah,
There is anything that says they can't.
so that's as of right.
Can I ask a quick question? Going forward, I think in the 10th edition of the building code, right, the current stretch code, right, is supposed to be baked into that. So the requirements for these ADUs would have to change based on that because, every new building that's built, excuse me, under that would have to have a electric car charger and it would have to be wired to be electric rather than gas. So all of those things are gonna have to get fixed in this by the time that addition.
Well, that's where we have in here that it talks
Tom,
about.
to interrupt you. Run into the bedroom.
So make note for the record that the chair has left the room at 7:42 PM. Well, that's where we have that the ADU has to comply with all state building and fire code requirements, and so building code. Whatever the building code says for these, then it'll have to comply.
I guess really what I'm saying is, the building code's gonna change probably before this thing gets approved at town meeting. Because I think the new edition comes out soon. So I don't know what the timing is on that. I'm just curious to see, like, we may be back at the,
Well, we could change,
Design
we
board,
could change the
put some-
language there. It says, in conformity with all state building and fire code requirements, latest edition.
okay, yeah.
Something like
makes
that.
sense. Yeah, that helps.
Now, these could be attached also, right?
Yes.
The attached is essentially the in-law.
Yes. Currently, what we call in-law is what we'd call, moving forward, will be known as a attached accessory dwelling unit.
So if somebody come in with a vacant lot, you could do like apartments on there, right?
They could do a single family and they could do an ADU. Let the record note that the chair is returning at 7:43 PM.
Thank you. So that'll give us some readiness.
So that, would that affect the subdivision control law at all? You could come in with a subdivision, five lots with ADU in your plans, right?
It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be part of the subdivision. You
Oh,
could,
Yeah, okay.
yes. You could come in with a subdivision and you could show 5 houses
Yeah.
and then you could show 5 ADUs.
Yeah.
You could call them garages and then you can change them to.
You
or
could,
you
so
could,
doesn't
you know.
doesn't the primary dwelling already have to exist?
They,
No, doesn't say that in there.
it doesn't specify that.
I thought it said existing.
So realistically, using Meadowbrook Development as an example, right? You got, what, 8 or 10 homes in there,
Right.
right? And you could submit those plans, right? The primary residence, an attached ADU, right? And then a detached ADU if it had 40,000 square feet or more. So, if you wanted to develop it in that way, then all you had to do was make sure your lots were 40,000 square feet and it would look like a housing project. I mean,
I will,
sorry.
I will double check that, Mr. Chair, just
I
in
thought the
case.
state's regulation they submitted, I thought it said something about existing.
I will check that to see, just to be sure. I'll get into that and see what it. But I don't recall reading anything. Excuse me, I don't recall reading anything about that. But I will double check.
Okay.
So getting back,
Yeah, so for instance, site plan review. A process established by local ordinance or bylaw by which a municipal board or authority may review and impose terms and conditions on the appearance and layout of a proposed use of land or structures prior to the issuance of a building permit. That's under the definitions. I'm sorry, Mr. Beninato,
yeah, so getting back, we have proposed amendment. Improvement?
So what I'd like to do is, take these changes and, send them off to, town council for his review.
With the questions that we had added.
Right. And see if the, and if the edits, Can I steal your copy, John?
People would recommend.
As this is an open hearing, is there any comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Please state your name for the record. Right name, residence.
I'm John Goldbergson, I'm chairman of the Whitman Zoning Board of Appeals.
Nice to meet you, John.
I'm counsel here at one time. And we are going through the same exercise, so I was curious to see what you're doing. We had a accessory apartment bylaw for many years, limited to use by in-laws, members of the family, owner occupied, and requiring a special permit. So as the town planner said, it's kind of out the window.
Yeah.
We drafted a bylaw, we're going to advertise a public hearing. First ad should be in the paper Thursday, which will, again, subject anybody running in before town meeting to what we've come up with. We probably won't, I think the public hearing is going to be March 11th, because I wanted to have time to respond to the state's final regulations. I saw the draft regulations, I haven't seen the final ones. They were just issued today.
They just came out over the weekend.
Okay, so I'll be, because I'm sure we'll have to, again, make some changes based on that. But yeah, we're going basically down the same path and the same approach that you're doing here. I'll just ask the town planner, one of the issues with the original, the draft regulations was they would have allowed an ADU on any residential lot, regardless of whether it was single family, 3-family, 6-family, whatever. They weren't limited to adding a unit to a single family dwelling. Did they change that?
It talks about single family, but there is that gray area, you know, and that sort of came up today once this was out and it was in the Mass Planner Forum, where, you know, if you have a situation where it's like, okay, so I have a 3-family, it's in a residential zone, can I go out and ask for an ADU? And it's kind of like, well, yeah, I guess you can, you know? So there is that murkiness, a little bit of a gray area that I'm not sure that the state has kind of really finalized.
We're hoping that, because that issue was raised, I participated in some of the webinars that you probably did as well, and sent some comments in my own, but that was one of the issues people flagged, because when the state initially set up like their own webpage, the HLC set up a webpage explaining, you know, FAQs, what is an ADU and everything. They said right on the webpage, this is put an ADU with a single family house. And then when these draft regulations came out, they just opened the door. So I'll be interested to see what the findings look like.
Here's a copy of the findings.
Oh, okay. So, but again, we're going down the same path you are.
I call it a rabbit hole.
And as a gentleman stated, is under section 6 of the zoning act, when you publish your first public hearing notice, then anyone that comes in with an application will have to follow those regulations versus, you know, us not having any regulations.
That's up tonight.
Well, actually, the first public hearing notice, which was the 9th of January, but because we have the public hearing, it's even more so.
Mr. Ellis?
I got a comment for this gentleman in Whitman.
John?
Yeah.
You have the advantage that we don't, because we don't have city surge,
Right.
you know, so that's not a big issue.
Yes.
Big issue here.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
You could put 100 on one lot.
Oh, by the way, in Whitman, the ZBA does special permits and site plan reviews, so you're not.
You gotta change that.
So a great point made by Mr. Benonato. So this evening, the town planner is asking for us to provide some action in regards to the draft changes. Is there any action from the board to move the draft changes onto town council? Motion's been made by Mr. Benonato.
Mr. Chair, by me, and to continue the hearing to February the
I'll do that
10th.
next. Yeah, I'll do that next. First, I want to get your, motion's been made by Mr. Benonato to favorably support the town planner in moving the changes to town council for review.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any discussion in regards to that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries, Tony. Please let us know what the updates are. And the next thing I would like to do, unless there's any other further discussion, is that I entertain a motion to continue the hearing until February 10th.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Cohen, properly seconded by Mr. Benonato. Any discussions to continue until February 10th? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. That's going to be continued again to 2:10. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Town Administrator, I tried pulling you in a little bit earlier. I couldn't. We did take the agenda out of order. What I would like to do, gentlemen, is we are out of order. I'd like to give the floor over to the Town Administrator in regards to the bullet under the updates from the town planner for outstanding warrant article funds update. Thank you very much, Town Administrator. Nice to see you.
Okay, nice to see you, Helen. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So first and foremost, I just want to make the board aware that with what happened was an error. There's no ill will towards the planning board.
Oh, but just to back, in regards to the funding that we were made aware of that had been,
Oh, I'm sorry.
thank you, Joe. Nice to see you.
I'm sorry, I thought everyone about what happened, so.
I think everybody knows about the issue. I don't know,
Okay,
you know,
okay.
How that happens.
So Mr. Dufresne has brought to my attention some articles that had been defunded by the town accountant. And I was not aware of any of these articles. The town accountant and myself did not have any conversations regarding these articles. So when I had spoken to the town accountant on what had happened, because normally we do sit and go through articles and, we look at them and see if there's more information that needs to be provided, of whether or not we can close the articles, especially when we're in budget crunch time. So we had not spoken about any of the planned articles. And Mr. Dufresne brought to my attention that a number of articles had been defunded. And to be, let's say, specific, we had, there was an article on update sidewalk design, Article 40 of the October special town meeting, concept plans for Main Street, Article 9, special town meeting. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact dates in here, but I believe the sidewalk design was 2020. Nope, actually.
Actually, that one I think was 20.
Concept, the conceptual plans were 2020, FY 2020. The sidewalk design, I actually don't have the year of that.
I think it's like 2012.
2012?
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
2012.
2012.
I can double check that.
The drainage design, Article 7 of special town meeting, that looks like it was FY 23. The scan plans, Article 8, special town meeting, and I don't have that one in this list either, so that is the older one. And then codifying the zoning bylaws, Article 8, special town meeting, of which that's not on here. So unfortunately, the town accountant did see that there was no type of activity on these articles in FY 23 and FY 24, so he went ahead and closed them, meaning, closed them and then released the funds. So I immediately had a conversation with him, and he apologizes to the board for this error. We are putting those safeguards into place that this will not happen again, because it did happen once before. Not with this town accountant, with the prior town accountant. They closed an article, didn't let the people know, they went and spent money, and the money wasn't being reimbursement. We did correct it, but I would hope that this is not going to happen again going forward. So what we are going to do is we will we'll get the language from these original articles. We will draft articles and put them in the warrant for the special town meeting, so the fund will be reestablished for these articles.
Great.
And putting them in the special town meeting means it will be available basically the day after.
Great.
So again, my apologies for this error. There's no ill will or disrespect to the board. It just seemed that it was a communication error. But we will work to make sure this does not happen again.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Chuck Winter.
One of the articles, which is codify zoning bylaws, that for some reason is was in our pile, if you will, but it actually is under the select board. That has to do with the town's process of codifying the bylaws through general code. So that one is not really ours.
Any questions, comments from the board?
Yeah, I have a quick one.
Kevin.
Sorry, you can go ahead, Don. Go ahead.
Mr. The Article 1 there, on the top, the sidewalk design, that's going to be
Well, yeah, there was no money spent out of that, from what I understand. So, and because it was an older article and there was no contract or anything delivered to the town accountant to show that, no obligations to that money, that's when he went and closed it out.
that was for the design.
So I don't have all of the specifics on the article, but we'll find the original,
And that will go back to the planning board.
Exactly the way it is, exactly. So all the funding
Yeah, because I thought it
will
was,
go back.
I thought it was 15,000 originally.
There may have been some money spent.
There could have been some.
Yeah, there could have been some. So I think that the update the sidewalk design, which was for, I believe, was the Main Street ones. The Main Street design that went from like High Street all the way out to like 58.
Yes.
So we have those plans and so forth, and I think that was what was left over for that.
No.
No?
Plans were never drawn.
They were. I have design plans.
What was the age on?
I think it was 2000 and, let me see if I can find it. 'cause I
That
wanna say
article
it
was
like-
2012, so.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
Well, the town
I don't remember, because I proposed that request because we wanted to do sidewalks down Main Street to give the town more residents to go around, and then eventually go down High Street and connect to Main Street, so you'd have all those loops. Plus, it would be picked up by the train station. But it was, the land planning had drawn the original plans for sidewalks on Main Street. And the request to do it again was gonna cost about 15,000 to upgrade the plans, because some of the catch basins had to be moved and so on and so forth. So they
Yeah, I
just
don't have
sat
the
there.
specifics on, what, if anything was spent out of ring or anything. I just have what the articles were and the
Yeah,
amounts.
That's
that were
what's left
used.
probably.
Yeah, and so if it was for 15, there could possibly have been something spent out of it,
Right.
something, but it didn't show up, or it, for some reason, it didn't appear in what.
If that's the same one,
Yeah.
we're both talking about the same one, because
Yeah, at least I
went
don't
to
have the
town, I went to
specifics
town
exactly.
meeting myself, and as part of the planning board,
Yeah.
to do that.
We'll go back and find the original, like all the
Yeah.
language.
So we
these
have,
Original articles.
So
We-
we just wanted, so that you'd be able to use it.
yeah, we have, these are plans that were done.
You're upside down. Wait a minute, I gotta stand up. I'll stand up.
So these plans were done back in.
What's the stamp, or when that stamp there? Up top? No?
So wouldn't it just take a vote at town meeting to remove those funds from that account? I mean, like, if it's not being used, we can't even seem to figure out what it's earmarked for. Couldn't we just do something at town meeting, like a warrant article saying, okay, this money's been sitting there for 3 years? Because I know, like, in CPC, we'll institute a policy where if the money hasn't been used within 3 years, we're gonna take it, claw it back. So I wonder if, that same thing could be done in this respect. And it brings up a question to me with, clawing back money, if it's a warrant article, you can't actually do that.
Oh, no,
Right.
2002.
I'd have to ask exactly how that process would happen, because I mean, I know we really haven't dealt with clawing back money. And the town accountant does have some authority under the town accountant to close out an article and then release the funds to the general fund, which doesn't require town meeting, which doesn't require a town meeting vote.
Oh, okay.
But to reappropriate the funds to like a different, a different need or, a different project, you could certainly word the article that you're gonna take the funds that were appropriated, and we put Article 40, October special town meeting, 2012, for update sidewalks,
So to be used with it.
reappropriate to, a different purpose.
Okay.
And that can certainly go to town meeting.
So you could put a time stamp on it, like, if you don't use the funds within like 3 years, 5 years, whatever feels comfortable, then you wouldn't have to worry about articles and stuff like that.
I can certainly ask town council if they can do that. With the articles to make sure that they're used within 3 years. We can certainly do something.
The only concern that I would have is if there is absolutely some monies that were quoted from 2012 or 2014, 2017,
It won't be enough.
it's not gonna, the price.
Well, for instance, the plans were originally done, these design plans were done in 2002. Okay? And so we have a whole set of plans that shows the design from High Street to Route 58, and then they sat on the shelf.
Yeah.
So then I reached out, then I said, okay, well, we have this money, $12,750. And a year or so ago, I reached out to the company that did the work, VHB, and asked them for a proposal in the hopes that, hey, maybe it'll be within $12,750. And we can get those plans updated, and then we can follow through to try for a grant to actually get them built. They came back with a proposal of like $200,000. So the particular contact at VHB, I'm dealing with him on another project, and he asked me, and I said, you came back at $200,000. I'm like, what are you thinking? Where are you getting 200 grand? I said, all you need to do is I need you to just update the plan. Which is basically what you're going to do is you're going to charge us $200,000. You're going to take the plan, walk down the street. You're going to see what the difference is between then and now,
Change the date.
and add the things and change the date. I mean, come on, it's well, maybe they were going from like A to Z. They were going from here. They were going from A to Pluto. Is what they, I mean, I'm sorry, you're out of your mind.
That was we don't want to do it, Bryce.
Yeah.
So, but the tough part is because they have done all the work, you sort of had like a home field advantage versus let's go out and start from scratch. The one good thing is I have drawing files that were submitted by VHB because I guess at the time, part of the proposal was the town would get drawing files. Now those drawing files it's been a long time, may be able to be used, may not. So you sort of, so that was the hope with that particular,
Great. So,
Add a little more to it. Laurie Muncy was the town planner at that time, and we took the plans down to found out that on the plan, it showed that land planning was subbing for the company you were talking about. So they had done all the survey work for them and everything else, so all they wanted to do was update it, so that's why it was only 15,000 back then. But we went, after we got that information and got the grant, we went to DOT over in Taunton, I think it is, somewhere over there. Had an appointment with them to see if we could get any kind of money for grants. Back then, the grants were a little bit different than they are today, evidently. And we made an appointment with them, came in and sat down with their engineers and told them what we had and the plans and what we wanted to do is, can we get any grants, to help put the sidewalks in? And they said, no, And I said, is there any money out there? And she said, well, there could be. And I said to them, I said, well, how can we get to it? And she said, I don't know. I said, is it because we don't have a Kennedy? You know, it's living in Hanson, you know? They-
Well, now we have a Sweezy,
Yeah.
so maybe that'll help.
So I said that to them, and they said, oh, we can't answer that. I said, how about just nodding your head, you know? And they did, all of them nodded. They had a big smile on their face, because, you know, you gotta, to get these grants back then, you had to have influence, I think it was, basically. But that's how that all came about.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, on the screen, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them.
Yes.
Beyond this codified zoning bylaws, am I safe to say that the planning board would like the other 4 returned?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna get that done. And thank you for, just for the board to know, town administrator sent me an email, my apologies, I didn't get back to you. You did send me an email, I appreciate that. Town administrator threw me to the board, same statement tonight, you know, apologize for this happening. So better practices between the accountant and department heads, right? That's what's up place. So
correct.
thank you for that, I appreciate that.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for your email, thanks for your appearance tonight.
And
Appreciate it.
we will, again, we will talk at town meeting about this and why these need to be,
Great.
you know, reestablished.
Right.
And town accountant also said, I will stand up and say it was my error. So, yeah, it does, something like this doesn't happen very often. Like I said, it happened once before when our other town accountant was here, but otherwise, it's not something that normally happens.
Right, well, thank you, I appreciate it. Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, I just want to say, everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah,
It's what you
sure.
do when to fix it, it's what counts.
Right. It's more important to correct it than to try and point a finger and blame someone.
Absolutely.
It's
Thank you,
getting
Chief.
corrected.
Appreciate it, thank
All right,
you.
you're very welcome.
Thank you.
The other stuff we have on board business, we go back to our regular agenda, so Tony, zoning application review in your packet. Yeah. Do you
Yes.
have any comments about the submission by Colleen Kennedy for the operation of a doggy daycare?
Can I make a couple comments on that?
Sure.
So I'm familiar with this lot. This lot is in both business and a residential AA. Also familiar with the use, being a dog kennel, and the requirements for the dog kennel are listed as section 61K, which is just kennel approval through the ZBA. But the other one, 8D, has a list. I don't know if you could pull it up, Tony. The requirements, if you wanted to. The requirements include some extra approvals, and you have to abide by all of them. I understand that they're trying to go through the ZBA, but one of them includes that the business is only to be carried out in the building. And on these plans, they have an outdoor fenced area, which says that it's included in an insert, which I did not see. I think it's the this page. I don't see a reference number, but it looks like the fencing area is above the leaching fields. Is what it looks like they're trying to do. But when I first saw this application, I thought this is the exact property that pretty much no business has been able to do business on, because it's part business and part AA. And what they're attempting to do is to put the building completely in the business zone, but they're treating the property as a whole, as if the whole property was in the business zone. The reason why I say that is because the setbacks are correct for the building from the street and from the side. But if you look at the building, it's right on the bisection of the AAA zone, or AA zone, apologies. And I do understand that there is a bylaw where you can encroach 30 feet into the less restricted portion, which is the AA zone. So what they've done is they are trying to do it as if they're gonna stay in the business zone, but then the leaching fields in the AA zone, in the whole outdoor areas in the rear AA zone as well, over the leaching area. So the use doesn't really conform for this lot. That's the major issue for this lot.
Tony?
So this site, yes, you're correct, it's bisected. This is has come before the zoning board many times, and the board actually did see this application and these plans under a different application for a different use. So now the current applicant wants to utilize what was proposed, the building and so forth, but for a different use, that being a doggy daycare and overnight boarding of animals, or specifically, well, animals, dogs and cats. And so there would be also an on-site caretaker for the overnight hours, not, so they can encroach into the residential area by 30 feet and use that for the business, but they cannot go into the residential area and do anything that's related to the business. What you're seeing on the screen, that actually is the stormwater infiltration system. The septic system is actually out front here. So any activity out over that would not be allowed under the current zoning bylaw, unless, well, as far as I know, the zoning board of appeals has not allowed that on any of these projects. So they would have to stay within the constraints of the district and that 30 feet.
So right behind the building, on this one sheet, it says proposed pad for dumpster and fenced.
Yeah,
fenced
proposed
enclosure.
dumpster, and yep,
It's very tiny.
which is right here. That would be the dumpster.
So
This is
what's the fenced in area?
this here is for the drainage system, and what you see here, this line, that is a contour line.
So that little area right there.
Right there.
Is gonna be
is
enough
for the
room
dumpster.
for 100 dogs to go to the bathroom?
No, I think that's for the dumpster.
Oh, okay, so with the fencing closure, it says C detail. And there's no
Okay.
detail.
So this is the detail right here,
And where's the detail?
and there's the fence. So that's for the dumpster. The dumpster has to be screened with a fence.
So that's a
So that
typical
detail
dumpster
is
fence.
located where?
What's that?
That's a typical dumpster fence. Like,
Yeah.
if you look at the VCA next door, right? There's fenced in the same way.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
you're seeing that
There's no,
you're gonna keep the dog inside?
yes.
That-
They're not showing anything outside.
They can have the dogs go to the bathroom indoors?
I don't have enough information to answer that question. They would have to present that to the ZBA.
I would say that
So-
would be the concern, you know?
Okay.
Be it for that space that they're proposing,
So you're saying there should be a doggy do area?
100%. And they've maximized the space for the business zone for 7,250 square foot, but then didn't leave themselves any room for the dogs to go to the bathroom. Anyone that's even the owner of a dog knows that, what are they gonna be doing? Walking one dog at a time all over the leaching field in the back to go to the bathroom? and then there's wetlands further in the back. So,
I don't have enough information to
Yeah.
answer that
Yeah.
question. That's a question though I can put in our comment letter.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know our purpose here for this is to add comment. We're not the people that make the decision on this, it's the ZBA. But with this lot, it's been difficult because we have business in the front and you have double A in the back. And to keep the whole business on the business section for this and still have room for the dogs to go to the bathroom, it doesn't work.
So you're saying the leaching field is in the double A zone?
This is actually the drainage. That's the
Right.
drainage.
So the drainage, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the drainage is in the residential zone.
So I got a question for you, if you don't mind.
Wait a minute, Mr. Bernard, do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, just an observation, it seems like it's dual zoning from what I understand. Looks like they're converting it to one zone. I don't see how you also do the residential here as well.
We've talked about that in other hearings.
So oh, sorry.
Right.
Just
want to make sure that Mr. Bernard wants to get his point.
Is that an ADU?
Question?
So the zone, so the lot's bisected by the zone. There isn't anything residential that they're proposing, other than they're creating a space for an overnight caretaker because they're going to board dogs and cats, maybe, I don't know, but at least dogs,
T-Rexes.
maybe. But the one thing is that the previous, design-wise, engineering-wise, this particular engineer sort of made it all work with what they had as far as space. So layout-wise, it's probably the best kind of layout. Now, as far as what they're proposing for their use,
Yeah.
yes, they can't go beyond that 30 feet. They can't go into the residential zone for a dog walk or a place for the dogs to do their business. Now, I don't know, I have not seen the business plan, I have not seen anything like that. Now, I assume that they're going to address that at the ZBA, but I can add that as a comment.
And the
Yeah.
other comment is, oh yeah, sorry.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Another comment is, if it is offering overnight boarding, nobody's standing there all night long watching dogs sleep. So they are gonna be staying overnight in that place.
Yes,
So.
and they are proposing a space for that. That's on there,
In the building. Mr. Kelly?
yeah, in the building.
All right, so my question is, in order to create a business in the business zone, right, they have to use a portion of the double A zone. So my question would be, how does that work? Because it just seems to go against whatever the regulations are, because the idea is now you've got a commercial entity going into the double A zone in order to do what they need to do. So I
But
just
that's
wanted to throw that out there first, right? And then my next question that goes along with that is, that leaching area, as far as I can tell, is within the 200-foot zone of, there's a river back there, right? So that's a riparian zone, which is 200 feet. So from that edge of that wetland, 200 feet out, you can't do that leaching field. And my other question is, there's an easement across there for a water line. Am I wrong on that? So
It's out here.
It's on the back.
it's out in the back?
Yeah,
All right,
it's right
I couldn't see that, I'm sorry, my eyes aren't what they used to be. So, but my concern is the zoning for the building, right, is business, but it needs to use that double A zone in order to create the business, so I see an issue there.
It's a conflict, so stealing from Peter,
Yeah.
no.
Well,
That's what I was trying to say.
Oh,
You
right.
did it much better.
well, the thing is,
I'm trying.
well, the thing is, the bylaw says that they can go into the residence zone by 30 feet. It's in the bylaw.
Okay,
They can't go, so this line here represents 30-foot parallel to the business, the district line. Anything out in here that's related to the business, and when I say business, the drainage is okay, but anything that's related to the business, as if it was a different use, let's say as a used car lot, could not store used cars out here, could not store anything anything like that has to do with the business.
Okay, so could we do something, or, no, I shouldn't say we, but wouldn't it make sense, I know, like in conservation, when you come up close to an area, like, you know, we have a 100-foot buffer, so if someone were to go to 75, we would make them put up stanchions or posts that say, you know, unusable, so to speak, you know, for lack of the right word.
I can double check, but I think that this was actually approved by conservation, this layout with this
So,
previously.
Okay.
so
yeah.
would conservation be approving the use though?
Well, I'm not saying that because I think conservation should weigh in on that. I get what I'm seeing there, it looks fine to me, but what I'm saying is, is the ZBA gonna make sure that these people are aware that they can't put their doggy do outside the limits of the business zone,
The 30 feet.
right? Because, you know, or the 30 feet or whatever it is.
Right,
So,
I mean, I can
what I'm saying
make
is,
comment
at
of
that
that.
30 feet, can't we have them make signage saying that, you know, do not go beyond this point? Because, you know, when someone goes for a doggy walk, they're not looking at, oh my God, I just crossed the line, you know? Just, well, not-
Yeah, I could throw a comment regarding, you know, clarity, have the applicant provide clarity that, or be made to understand that beyond the 30 feet, they can't do anything that's related to the business.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to say, the hard way.
Yeah, I think there needs to be clarification how many animals they're allowing in there as well, because I could understand if it was cats that go in a litter box, but for that space, you're probably talking about 100 dogs that they're planning on having in there with no place to go in a fenced-in.
Are there Board of Health rules for that? Like, you know, so many
Yeah.
dogs per square foot? or something?
Well, I'm sure that the kennel license will,
Yeah.
they'll have to apply for
Yep.
the kennel license, and it might be up to 50 or 50 plus.
If I may,
If they're planning on building this and buying that lot, trust me, they're planning on having over 100 dogs in that space with no place to go to the bathroom.
That's what, I guess my point would be, wouldn't they need a plan, right? And the kennel plan would have to say, this is where all the doggy do goes at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
Dumpster.
is that where it goes? It's probably, that's what I mean. You know, I think that's something that needs.
It always ends up on my friggin' shoe.
Exactly. So,
The
so can we
title-
add that as a,
Well, Title V does have requirements for gallons per day for kennels. I believe it's 50 gallons a day
okay.
per dog.
Yep.
I think it's per kennel. 50, or kennel, 50 gallons per day is how it's listed.
Are
So-
you talking about number 2?
So you're
It just
saying-
says 50 gallons per day. I'd have to look, that's,
Can't be for one
So-
dog, no.
So,
T-Rex.
so the thing is, you really can't keep track of urine. And when you bring a dog outside.
Oh,
to
my
get-
PCP asks me for it every
to go to
time.
the bathroom. And then they are looking for grooming as well, so there's gonna be a huge water usage on this location as well. So I understand that it's approved for the building and the drainage, as is right there, and it's a great plan, they fit everything. But they didn't take into account the encroachment on the AA zone when they bring out dogs to go to the bathroom, and I can almost guarantee that there will be a fence set up at some point after this is built. And I don't want to be the guy to say I told you so, that's all. So I think I know that the ZBA is made up of a new member, and the other 2 members probably haven't had a kennel application along with a ZBA application before. Yeah, I think this one's a difficult one, being in 2 zones.
I think this is.
Did you get all that,
So
Tony?
it's-
I did.
I'm familiar with the space, so I'm a
Cool.
little concerned about it. Yeah.
Did you say
It-
wattage as far as the grooming? You said it's a.
No, I was just saying the water usage.
Oh, water.
Water usage,
Water.
yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
So the way that they were setting it up for the septic and whatnot.
Yeah.
Would be for maybe 1 bathroom.
Right.
And a couple of employees.
Yeah.
But it said in there 14 employees. And the water usage of 14 employees going to the bathroom, and then the dogs go in the bathroom. And who knows if they're planning on flushing all the dog poop down the toilet too, I don't know. Right, or if they just throw it in a dumpster, you have to think about all these things.
So you got sanitary concerns.
Huge Board of Health concerns for this location.
So does the Board of Health would be involved in that, right?
Yes.
I mean, how many gallons of water a day does it take to wash a dog, you know, like?
So, yeah.
We don't know.
So
that,
it's, kennel veterinary office per kennel is 50 gallons per day.
right? Okay. Yeah, but.
You're saying that they're only
Show
allowed
dog
to use
washing,
50
though.
gallons
Per
day?
kennel, per kennel.
For the whole kennel, 50 gallons a day?
No,
That's
per
what they
kennel.
need to- That's what they need to design the,
So if you, so
If you got
if you're gonna have
100
one enclosure for a dog, I'd say that's one kennel.
that's kind
Yep.
of,
So if you're gonna have, so that'd be 50 gallons. So if you have 5 of them, it's 250 gallons. So you're gonna have 50 gallons per day per kennel that, for the septic system design.
So can we get an assurance from them that they've looked at that? Like, or ask them-
I know, I know
Yep.
that, the Board of Health agent has spoke with the applicant regarding that septic system needing to be changed to meet the needs of their use.
Oh, okay.
you're saying, yeah.
Which is on
That's a better
double
way
A.
of putting it. Thank you.
So, when I initially saw it, I was like, the building's too big for what they're trying to do, because if they shorten the building up and put an outdoor area at the back, it would make sense. You know what I mean? But the original approval was for 7,500 square foot building, and they shortened it by 250 square feet, which isn't very much. Right? The original approval was for a 7,500 square foot building.
Yeah, they're mashing a lot into the one request, dude. It's not just the square footage, it's the use, it's the drainage, it's a lot.
Yeah, and I made some comments. I have a comment letter of some stuff that I saw that.
When is this
questions.
appearance? Tomorrow night,
Uh,
23rd? No.
50 gallons is for the whole kennel.
February 4th.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be per dog either. That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know if that's per dog or
No,
per
it
the
can't
whole
be.
thing.
That's a 55-gallon drum for a dog to fill up in one day. You kidding me? I mean, that thing's this high.
Yeah. We were talking about water usage, right?
Yeah.
Bill.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
water usage, right?
because that says kennel veterinary office. It doesn't say dog grooming facility, which I would assume would be, you'd want clarification on that.
It says kennel.
You'd have to change, you know, kennel veterinary office. What does kennel really mean? You know, does that include dog washing? Because I know Five Rings up the road, they do dog washing as well. You know, you can get your dog groomed there at the same time.
you'd have to look at the definition and see if the state has any, let's say, tighter regulations, if you will. But
Mhm.
that's their, you know, and I'm
That's how
not
they
sure.
put it.
That's how they put it. And I'm not sure if in their definitions,
Okay.
if they define kennel, let's see. They do not.
Oh.
So, but that's what they have.
So it's not in there, it doesn't matter? Is that what you're saying?
No, is, what happens is if you have, let's say there's a use that you have that doesn't quite fall in there, you can get information from the DEP on that use. They may have information, or you can use, other similar, businesses or water uses.
Okay.
So,
So can we ask that question to them, you know, like add that into the,
yeah, I made a comment regarding the Board of Health,
okay.
that, you know, they should, you know,
So there's a set of lines, like parallel lines that come from the VCA property, hook a left at the back of the building and go out. What are those, what's that?
this here is the edge of their paving.
No, I'm saying it's down in the
Back
back
here?
of the building, see where the dumpster is?
Yeah.
See those two
These?
lines, straight ones, parallel to each other, going
Yep.
to the back of the lot? What is that?
That's the zoning line,
Oh, okay.
and that's the 30-foot line that's
Okay.
parallel.
I'm sorry I had to ask, but I'm.
No, that's all right. And then this is the wetland line here,
Okay.
and then you have your water main easement that runs through there.
So that other line, that squiggly one there, that's a 50-foot no touchstone? That's
Then
it?
this is your 50,
Yep.
and this is your 100.
Okay.
Why do these plants seem so faded?
You know, I asked myself the same question because I use our scanner upstairs, and that's the quality I've been getting, which is
Did you scan that when the earthquake happened?
could have been. No, it's disappointing to say the least.
I think it's probably
Great.
a resolution thing, you know, like how many pixels or whatever.
So is that business, is the building over the business line?
It's right on it.
Well, it's a couple inches over on paper anyway. What does that translate to in feet? You know? Plus, don't forget that dumpster is actually outside the business zone as well.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, but let's not forget they
Another
they, they have
They're
another
kinda
30
loose
feet.
with the line. You know? I'm just saying, they seem loose with the line, you know?
So basically, if you look at the back of the building, there wouldn't be any room to do a fenced-in area, even if they say, yeah, we'd love to put a little fenced-in area back there.
Yeah, again, I don't have enough information to tell you where, if any, fenced-in areas proposed.
Indoor rain?
This is a
Indoor
lot better than the
exercise
original
area?
plan. I don't know if you saw it, but there were actually two buildings. One
Yeah,
further
I mean,
in the back.
as far as layout, it's probably the best. It's the best layout for the site. The guy did a nice job at
Oh, yeah.
making everything.
Yep.
He's fitting 10 pounds of
Yeah.
sugar in a 5-pound bag when he
Oh.
designed the so
5-pound shoe and a 9.5.
yeah. Okay, so I'll
Thank
add
you.
those comments.
Any other comments, please, let the town planner know. We've gotten our update on Meadowbrook, so the last thing, the second to last thing is MTA zoning and court decision. Town planner.
So, as was discussed a little bit earlier this evening, the MBTA regulations. So I sent out information to the board. The SJC was in the case of Milton versus the Attorney General, or the Attorney General versus the town of Milton. There was basically three things that came out of the court decision. One, the court decided that the state can create these regulations and there's law. Two, that the Attorney General has the right to enforce that law. Three, the guidelines were not properly promulgated and that the state must follow the regulations to do so. One of the points of interest in the case was the grants. We lose the grants. And some towns said, well, we'll forego the grants and not comply with the law. The SJC has said, not going to happen. Just because you forego the grants doesn't mean you don't have to comply with the law. You must comply with the law. So what happened? On the 14th of January, the state implemented emergency MBTA regs, which are pretty much the guidelines, and now regs. They're in effect for 90 days. The regulations will be adopted following a public comment period, which I think that ought to be interesting, the comments they're going to be getting.
Yeah.
What comes out of that is maybe they'll make changes to the guidelines. Probably not. They'll probably take whatever comments, unless something comes out of left field. More than likely, they'll take those comments. They'll say, thank you very much, put them in the circular file and say, here's the
Have a great
guidelines.
day.
You know,
So,
sorry, go ahead.
so for a hot minute, we had $300,000 in grants, and that went away. So, what we have to do is submit a new action plan by February 13th. And then we have until July 14th to submit a district compliance application. What Lisa was mentioning is what came in this evening was a letter from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities from their secretary, Edward M. Augustus. And it's explaining what we have to do, and that's what we have to do. So, that being said, I have to form a action plan. I started working on the action plan. One of the things of the action plan is a requirement for a statement from the town administrator, and they have the language for the statement on the website.
Huh.
And they want it on the town's letterhead.
Huh.
That basically you say you're going to comply.
So
So,
from the TA, and here's what we want her to say.
so So I passed that along to the town administrator. So we have till the 13th to do that. So that's what's happening with the MBTA. So you will probably more than likely see this, and you will see this being brought back at least on the 10th of February.
And
For,
then it has to go back to town meeting where everybody.
correct. So what would happen, let's say on the 10th, is the same thing that's happening tonight with the ADU bylaw.
Yeah.
Well, what happened last meeting? Let's say the board votes to move it or recommend it to the select board. The select board then flips it around to the planning board for a public hearing. And then after the public hearing, any amendments or edits, then it goes off to town meeting. Now, the planning board is not the only board that can recommend bylaw amendments. It can be the planning board, it can be the zoning board, it can be the select board, it can be, I believe it's 10 citizens. It's in section 5 of the zoning act, chapter 48. And then it goes to town meeting. And of course, yes, it's up to the citizens what they want to do. Obviously, after the 14th of July, we can only speculate what will happen. You know we lose the grants, probably get sued, and then how do you make a town come into compliance? Probably fines is just a guess, Now, one thing, as you're aware, the library lost their grant. I did receive an email from the fire chief. He was filing an application for a grant. And in his grant application, it talks about MBTA compliance. And that basically that's going to be considered for your grant. So it was a grant, I think, don't hold me to, but I think he mentioned there was a grant for like fire blankets, and that you're not going to get the money. So I was surprised because I didn't think that they were going to go into the public safety sector. But clearly it's game on,
So who's running the state, the mafia?
Well, can I
Could be.
add to that just briefly, though? One of the things that did happen, and what he's talking about, is there was a groundswell of, angry people in the first responder community, and they backtracked on that.
Did they?
So, yeah, they're actually gonna get the grant, because, the state said, oh, wait a minute, we gotta back off from the first responders, which tells me, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And if people get angry enough and get political about it, then I think that there could be some, pushback. So
Nobody
that's
likes
all I'm gonna say
politics in
about it.
Hanson, though.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
What are you
just
talking
pointing it
about?
out,
That's the most
like-
political town I've ever been in.
Just because they're saying they can, just because the law says they can, doesn't mean they should. And, there's gonna be a lot of backlash, I think, and there should be.
Well, that's why I think the public comment period will be very interesting.
Yes.
And then who's gonna present this at town meeting?
Me?
Well, we can vote to recommend
Actually,
or not.
no, because
So,
it'll be
don't we
which
have to
town
vote?
meeting?
It'd be the Maytown meeting.
Yeah, so there is a reorg coming up.
Yeah, but the point is though,
Well, the Maytown meeting takes place before elections and takes place before the reorganization.
but we have to
Kevin's
recommend
gonna
it,
present,
though,
I'll be
right?
sick that night.
So we have to recommend it, right? So we can recommend or not.
Correct.
But then if we don't recommend it, then some other
Kills
board
it.
will say
Some other board can, the board.
they can
select
recommend
board
it.
can.
So, I mean, you can get a pass on that by not recommending it. But, what good is that gonna do?
Yeah, it does.
Send a message, anyway.
Did the
Luca
board
Brazzi.
do a reorganizing for who's on what committees and stuff? Because I heard that, to the grapevine, that we didn't do it, and it has to go down to the selectmen. In other words, you're on a certain committee, you are, I am, and so on.
Yeah, that was done.
We have to do it every year.
That was done.
Did we do it?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
they said they didn't do it.
On election, after election.
That's not true, we did it.
Yeah, we reorg and then reappoint. Yeah, we're covered with that.
And I,
Good.
Yeah.
I'll tell them they're wrong, so I'll send them up to you.
So,
Yeah.
so can I just ask a quick question? So are we technically back in compliance until July 14th?
no,
No, we were briefly
because those guidelines became emergency regulations,
Saturday.
Yeah.
okay? And they're, and in those emergency regulations, it says if you don't comply, you don't get the grants.
Okay. I got one other question. Tony?
Is it about something that we're talking about tonight?
Hmm?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll meet you down there.
Okay. His time to buy.
I was always under the understanding that maybe I got a little confused, is that any bylaw has to go through the planning department. Any other bylaw that deals with, like the selectmen and rules and regs, that has to go through the selectmen. But it's a state law. I always was under the impression was that if somebody wants to make a bylaw, no matter what it is, 10 people in the town decide they want a bylaw, still has to go through the planning board.
Yes, that's true,
Oh, okay.
but,
That happened with the ZUA.
but if it's a citizen's petition,
It's a what?
if it becomes a citizen's petition,
Yeah,
then it has to go to town meeting.
Go straight to town meeting.
right, but it still has to be passed through the planning board to get an opinion from the planning board.
Right, but it still
if you deny
becomes,
it, it still go.
but it still goes as a town, it still becomes a,
Right.
There's only two things that warrant articles that can't be refused. It's the citizens petition and the CPA.
No, I'm not talking about refusing it, but it has to go through the planning board. for-
yes,
for-
yes. So even if the citizens recommend to the select board,
Right,
we're proposing a bylaw amendment. So if the citizens propose a bylaw amendment, it goes to the select board. The select board then gives it to the planning board because they have to have the public hearing.
right.
And then the planning board can either give a written, oral report,
Right.
or zero report. The planning board can stand silent.
But it'll still go to the town meeting.
Right, and then, after the close of the public hearing, after 21 days, then the select board can decide what they want to do. They can either move forward, deny, or edit.
Right.
And so just so you know, Don, on the screen,
Yeah.
town clerk, file with the town clerk, subcommittee appointments, June 11th, 2024. And
You print
there's,
that out?
and there's, and there's our reorganization. File with the town clerk, June 11th,
June 11th?
2024.
Which ones, you're all over
Last year?
it, huh?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't mess about with that stuff.
Who's telling you that it's not?
Hmm?
Who's telling you that we didn't?
Some
I
kind
don't know, it was in the conversation, because I was into
You gotta
the.
get off Facebook, Don, I'm telling you.
Huh?
You gotta get off Facebook.
No, you won't see me at all there.
TikTok, he's the TikTok guy.
Yeah. You saw the way I was dressing the last time?
I did.
Oh,
I
it's gonna
did.
get better next week.
Nice.
So it's on file with the town clerk, both the reorganization and the subcommittee appointments.
Okay.
So Beth Sloan should know this. Right? 'Cause she
Yes, I
signed
mean, well, that's signed by Gene Kelly. That's Gene Kelly's
it. Okay.
initials.
There's no signatures on it, so it's not real.
Top right corner.
No,
Gene Kelly.
the people didn't sign. No, you didn't sign.
Oh, it's in our minutes. It goes to Tony. Tony submits it.
Yeah. Where's your signature?
All right. I don't think that, it's not, doesn't need my signature. It needs the town clerk to acknowledge it.
He's right.
But yeah, you have to file with the town clerk.
Yeah. It's fine with the town clerk.
Okay,
It's not
thanks.
us, we don't sign it.
You're probably too young for this. You want to help me, Mr.
All right, any other questions in regards to the zoning and court decision?
You remember that?
Yes? You have a question?
Motion to move.
So, next meeting?
Oh,
Next meeting.
For next, so, yeah, we'll entertain a motion for our next planning board meeting for February 10th.
So,
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions in regards to that? Any discussion?
The 10th, what, is that the first month?
Second Monday.
Okay, good.
Second Monday.
'Cause I gotta get another one in before you guys, so I can get it for Tony.
For the park.
Yeah, jeez. Nobody shows up.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of having a planning board meeting on February 10th, signify by saying aye. Aye opposed. Motion carries 5-0. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Take your pick. Motion's been made by Mr. Kemet, seconded by Mr. Benonato. Any discussion in regards to that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It is 8:46, we are adjourned.